Hello and welcome to the Quilling Quarter, dedicated to the art of paper quilling. My name is Charlotte. In April 2021, I spoke with the wonderfully creative quilling artist and graphic designer Cecilia Louie, who created Paper Zen. She has been documenting her quilling journey on her blog since 2006, and it has led her to be a published author of multiple books, a Craftsy instructor, YouTuber, Etsy seller, and inspiration to crafters around the world. Her templates and tutorials helped me when I first started my quilling journey, as I know they have done for thousands of others. I absolutely loved chatting with Cecelia and had a great time learning about her quilling career and how she forged such a unique style combining quilling and die cutting. So grab a cup of tea and enjoy the interview. First question I want to ask is how did you actually find quilling? How did you discover it and start doing quilling?
I actually first saw quilling in a library book. It was like a dusty book, and the examples were they reminded me of doilies, kind of lacy, very frilly. And so even though the technique was intriguing to me, the examples didn't inspire me to, jump in and just try it out for myself. And a couple of years later, I saw it again in the Klutz book by Twirled Paper by Klutz.
Okay.
And at that point, all those fun examples, like little frogs and aliens, and because it was so loose and childlike and just fun, that was what grabbed me to give it a try. And because my day job is a graphic designer, everything that I do is very gridded, very ruled and guidelines. And I was just kind of like, I really need a break from computer work and having everything all lining up. I just wanted nothing to line up. I wanted no rules. And so to me, it was a way to just let my mind relax and let go of all the rules I had to follow all the time. So that was purely what it was. And sometimes I think my nature is very structured already as a personality. So to force myself to do something more childlike was kind of like letting my hair down. And so that book is always going to be my favorite to recommend to any beginner, because it doesn't make it so structured that you have to feel like you have to attain some level of perfection just to do quilling. And ironically, I know my work tends to be that way. And I don't know why I can't seem to go the opposite direction, the direction I want to go in, but it's just who I am. And my husband says, you just have to accept that.
Yeah. So how long had you been working as a graphic designer by the time you discovered quilling?
At least 10, 15 years.
Okay, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes you just need a break from what you do every day, just to feel like it's something different, right?
Yeah. Is your work as a graphic designer, it's concept based and someone interprets it, or like are you working with paper in your graphic design work?
Not the same way as what quillers think of working with paper. Back then, I was working more in design studios. So when you think of paper as a graphic designer, you're thinking of how does an offset printer print ink on paper. So whether your paper is coated or uncoated, does it have recycled stock in it? Does it have texture, grain? How does that affect the annual report you're doing, or brochure, or like what kind of feeling are you trying to convey through the paper that way? And what can you push on press? What kind of budget do they have? So those things impact how you think of paper. Whether you print with metallic on several layers of other previously printed inks, it all affects how the end product will result. So completely different than illustrating with paper.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, completely different parameters, even grain direction of how you fold a brochure, all those kind of things. Yeah, so different.
Interesting, because when I read that you were a graphic designer, I thought that your graphic design work would feed like directly into your quilling. But it's interesting that you contrasted. It's like, it's really, rigid and gridded and, very like methodical, whereas you find, like you've described, paper work as like your Zen time, and it's a real contrast. So
it is, yeah, it is a contrast, but I guess it's also freeing that way too.
So I think, yeah, that sort of leads nicely into like the name of your YouTube channel and your blog, Paper Zen, and the logo. Like, can you explain the story about the logo and the name of your blog?
It kind of developed along the way. I actually had started a blog prior to Paper Zen, and it was actually called Crafting Creatures. And I was just trying to encourage some other crafting friends of mine that we were actually learning how to do crochet. So crocheted animals, I was making some puppets, and so it was a menagerie of their work, my work, paperwork, and crochet. And for me, as like when I went to Emily Carr, the instructors would say to document your work, and that practice, it was just something instilled in me. And what I did was I just photographed all the greeting cards I would make for people to just remember what I gave them, what did I do. It was just like a diary in a way. That was back when blogs were kind of new, and so that was my version of just remembering what I had made. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, Lark Crafts contacted me and asked me to write a book. And at that point, I was like, oh, okay. That was my bucket list, a dream project that just kind of fell in my lap. I think I've never admitted to anyone, not even my husband, that I had always wanted to write a craft book. So to answer your question, I kind of realized this is what I really want to pursue. At that point, decided to channel my efforts, not trying all these other kind of crafts and seeing what I'm doing. I wanted to focus more on paper because I've always loved paper. The Zen part came from, like, sometimes when I have an idea, I don't know how it feels for you, but it's like a frenzy. Like, oh, I just have to imagine what I have in my head and see it in my hands. And so that frantic energy that I feel, I only feel that kind of, rest after I see it. And I go, yes, that is exactly what I had imagined. All these layers, all these colors coming together. And then at the end, I feel like, okay, then that's the Zen that I feel. So it's almost like the calm after the storm that happens for me. So, and then Zen, I don't know, I guess I always think of an Asian kind of tie to that. Ironically, at the same time, another publisher in the UK had reached out and asked if I wanted to write a book. And so I was like, oh, two publishers at the same time. And they had asked me to submit some work to just, I guess when an editor is looking for possibilities, they're looking to also confirm, can they, I guess, fulfill on the contract? So they had asked for some samples of work. So I did, and that dragonfly just kind of came right at the last second before I had to ship. Oh. And yeah, and so I made it, and I quickly took photographs of it and shipped it off, and then they lost it. Oh. So those photos are all I have. So it's not like I was just trying to learn photography, and so yeah, they're not even the best photos. I've never made it since, but I've just it kind of reminded me of how I feel. It kind of like, just kind of seeing a dragonfly flitting about, it attracts your eye, and when I see one, I feel kind of lucky that day, like, oh, I saw a dragonfly, it was blue or it was red or whatever, right? It's just kind of, so it's not like it was anything really well thought out.
Yeah, that's interesting though. Like, it was obviously bubbling away in your subconscious, like for you to make it so quickly.
Yeah.
And then it's, it's been the logo of your YouTube channel and blog for so long. Like, it's obviously there in your mind.
I think because dragonflies, I mean, they don't make a sound. They're just kind of quiet, but they're lovely to look at. And I guess that kind of, okay, I feel like that kind of sums me up.
I want to sort of ask about how you started with your blog, and then, publishers started approaching you and things started expanding. What was it like when you got approached to be a Craftsy instructor, and what was that experience like?
At first, that was like, oh my God, I'm gonna hide. Because as an introvert, that's like your worst nightmare, right? And the way they described the room to me, 4 cameras on me, like let alone 1 camera, that's more than enough. So 4 cameras, 3 people would be working in the room. It was really scary to me. But at the same time, I said, like, look, if you want to take this seriously, you have to go through with this because you're going to learn so much. Yes, it's going to be scary. This is me self-talking to myself, right? Like, take this chance. So I did, and it was great, and I don't have any regrets doing it. It's a struggle for an introvert, but yeah, I'm glad I did it.
So is that over a period of weeks that you filmed those sessions, or was it just a one-off?
Oh my gosh, Craftsy was filmed in 3 days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they give you warning a few months in advance. I can't remember the timeline. Was it half a year or so? So I had to come up with the project ideas, the project files, get the script ready, pre-prep all the pieces because none of my equipment could come down. Like, they were asking me to do both die cutting and quilling and putting them together. That's why it's quilled sculpted cards. And so I wouldn't have my cutter with me. So I had to pre-prep extra pieces in case I screw up or whatever, right? And then also I already understood. It's like watching Martha Stewart. Like, she would mix all the ingredients and then, oh, here's one's already made. And so I would think that way. And then, okay, so if I save time by prepping this area here up to this moment, then I'll have all the pieces ready to assemble. Mm-hmm. So I was already starting to think that way. But on top of that, they also get you to think about how you're going to introduce everything because they don't know our craft. And so it helps them to understand how many angles are they going to need. And you can imagine everything's like this. And I'm usually like this. That's how I usually work. For them to have a better understanding of what was going to be entailed to even make the cards and things like that. Mm. So all that stuff had to be stepped out. Every class was all mapped out to the T.
Yeah. Wow. And then from reading your blog, that's when you decided to take the leap to start a YouTube channel. Is that right?
Yeah. I kind of gave myself a very stern talking to, kind of like a slap upside the head. Like, honestly, you think that you're going to be able to hide from the world? Your face is out there already. What are you afraid of at this point? And it's kind of like when I have no more excuses left. Okay, I guess I have to do this. Yeah. And then I started to share some ideas, and whenever I say, please comment below, I actually mean it because, it's just me in my craft room. And when I hear back from other people, to be honest with you, like I've taught quilling to some friends, and some of my friends are not as fastidious as I am. And when I try to teach them about like the littlest detail, they would say, they couldn't be bothered by that kind of minutia, right? And I thought, well, who would want my inner thoughts? Who cares about what I care about? And shockingly, based on the comments, a lot of people appreciate it. So, that was kind of like a learning moment for myself to understand that there are so many types of learners out there. And so just because my friends aren't caring about those tiny details doesn't mean that other people don't appreciate it. So to be honest, it's because of their comments. Everything was so encouraging that, video after video, I felt myself sharing more of my inner thoughts and ideas and becoming actually more myself as every video has gone out.
Yeah, so it takes time to sort of work, just have yourself show more than your persona sort of thing.
Yeah.
I remember with your YouTube channel, different from your blog, your YouTube channel it started more with letters. Is that right? Like how to measure the letters and do each letter of the alphabet in lowercase and uppercase?
Yes. Well, that kind of, everything seems to have just happened kind of, now that I think about it, kind of accidentally. What happened was after that first book, Lark Crafts, actually, as soon as my book had launched, that company got bought out by another company, and the head company was actually Sterling, and they're actually owned by Barnes and Noble. So up the chain it went, and they had actually talked to me about writing another book, and they were passing me to another editor who had no idea about quilling or paper crafts. She was about lifestyle. So I thought, that's not a good fit, right? How can she like give the same kind of feedback that I had from my first fantastic editor who knew what quilling was, even if she didn't do it? It makes a huge difference to have your editor understand the topic fully and even understand. Like I remember doing a mock-up of the Easter basket that I have in my book, and she said, "I've never seen that technique before." I go, "No, I haven't either." So, but then to have the editor understand, appreciate that, and make that become a project, that to me is a significant thing. So it's not, to me, to have an editor understand my work fully, it really is a dual relationship. So at that point, I decided, no, I'm not going to proceed with that book. And me being the little worker bee that I am, I already had half the book ready. I decided, okay, well, I'm going to try a few projects and put it out there, because that's what Marketing 101 is all about. You're supposed to, I guess, float out the idea and see like what kind of response you're getting. I got crickets. Nobody commented. I did like little letters.
Nice. That is so cool.
So then these little letters here, I was actually showing how to make them on my blog, because they're about the size of my thumbnail, as you can see, and they weren't easy. And they even have serifs even. I decided to show how to make that on my blog and see if there was any response from it, and there was no response. So I mean, already it was like, oh, I don't think anyone's going to care about learning how to do this. And again, I kind of came to the realization most of the work is already done. Why not just throw it up on Etsy and see what happens? Up until this point, I was also having a newsletter list, which came to my huge surprise that so many of my followers actually bought my book. And then I realized, oh, I better show them how to make it. I already knew I needed to show how to outline the letter A. So I already was deciding I would give that one freebie for people to understand how it works and to try it out themselves. And so I already knew I was going to film how to outline, how to trace the letter against the sunny window, and then how to fill it in. And then people started asking, well, how do you do this? Like, oh, okay, I should film another video to show that. And then I had another idea for the letter C. And then I realized, oh, I guess I should continue. And so, yeah, it's kind of funny to look back now, but I had not intended to go all the way to the letter Z.
It started with like an idea for a book that then didn't happen, that then you wanted to publish yourself, and then you made videos for each of the individual letters.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, because even when my editor talked to me about it, in my mind, I was thinking, how could I possibly show all the things I need to show that you can't explain in a book the same way? The photos can't do it justice. And another reason why I decided to do the YouTube channel was actually because our pilot light went out in our water heater, and my husband and I were in the cellar with a flashlight, and I'd taken pictures of the instructions on the side of the, like we're in the dark, right? And we followed the instructions, and it said to press the red button 3 times. We went press, press, press. Nothing happened. We did this 3 times through the whole, and then this whole cycle had to start again, right? And after the third time, it still hadn't lit. We haven't had our shower yet. And we're supposed to go to bed. And I thought, okay, well, why don't I just go look on YouTube? And sure enough, you go on YouTube and someone shows the red button. They go, press. What? That fast? It didn't say press it quickly. So, so we went back down. We press. Oh, there goes the pilot light went on. Ding. And then I kind of realized, people really need to see what I'm saying. And there's so much of both sides of my brain. So there's the technical side and then there's the artistic side. So when I'm filming a video, it actually took me a while to even stop fighting with each other on both sides of my brain, because the artistic person is trying to just do what comes naturally. And then the other side is trying to explain what that person is doing. So it didn't come naturally or anything, but I realized it really benefited people to see the steps I was taking and break it down step by step. And I knew it would help people, just as that pilot light experience helped me. So every letter I kept thinking, oh, I should explain this concept in this project. And so I would just come up with these projects as we went along. And about midway through the alphabet, I was like, oh my God. I was running out of ideas. I was like, oh, it's almost like climbing like some mountain and you're halfway through and you're thinking, oh, is it better to turn back now? You can't, right? You're already halfway up. You might as well keep going up. So up until the end, I was, and then at the end, I was like, well, what do I do now? It's kind of funny how it all worked out. But I'm glad I did it. It was a lot of work.
Yeah. Because, I've watched it quite a few, because I bought your ebook with the quilling phrases. And
thank you.
I think it was I had trouble with one of the letters. And, I needed to, look at your tutorial to know exactly how you did it. And, you're so right. Like, reading instructions is one thing, but actually, because some things don't always get written down, like, pressing the pilot light fast. It wasn't written, it's just assumed, but actually seeing it, it twigs better. So, thank you for making all the videos.
Thank you. It really does make a difference to hear people give feedback, because otherwise, you're just working in a vacuum. So it really helps. Thank you. You have a really interesting philosophy, like with your sharing ideas, and even though you have books published and ebooks, you put up a lot of free templates as well. And I sort of want to ask, you're going to a lot of effort to make these templates and show things. Like, what's your philosophy? Can you explain a bit more about how you share things like that? Okay. Funny enough, I taught in person at a local scrapbook store, and in that class that I taught, I made a simple jig. It was just, if you can imagine, a blank card with 4 squares on the card, and I was just going to teach them how to quill some flowers, and then they glue the flowers to the squares. Very simple, very basic. And to make sure that those squares are aligned and centered, me being me, I made a simple jig for them, and all they had to do was plunk it into the spot. And they all looked at it. People were freaking out. Where has this been all my life? And I kind of realized, I take it for granted what I can do. And I realized, of course, it helps people make things straight and easy and don't have to guess, was it centered? Was it straight? And so those little things that I do, I realize other people appreciate. And so when I make things even for myself, like the circle template, I realized, well, why not share this? Like, I know other people are going to really enjoy that. I've always wanted to have both millimeter and inches on the same circle template, right? Why not? And after I figure out the length, well, why not tell other people? So it's almost like YouTube has become like my larger circle of friends, where I just, hey, guess what I figured out? And it's kind of like that. It's like I kind of have fun sharing those simple ideas. Yeah.
And I think one of the funnest videos for me to watch of yours was when the light bulb went on and you explained the evolution of the paper strip organizer.
Mhm.
And with that you uploaded the free template, and I didn't use the right plastic. I use really soft plastic, whereas you use the stiffer one, so it's easier to sew. But yeah, I had great fun, and like all the different lengths are kept there, and it's so interesting, like how you it's fine when it's all in one spot, but then what do you do when you have the offcuts? Because quillers don't really ever put offcuts in the bin. You want to keep them and you want to keep them organized. So what are you going to do? And just watching the evolution of your idea. And then I was like, perfect. This is so cool.
So that's what I love is when I hear the feedback of, especially when people are beginning, and I mean, it's like you want to be the person that you wish you had guiding you when you first started. Like, oh, I wish someone told me about glue, or like how to keep things not so messy. It's like simple things. So it's, to me, it's like I'm being the person I could have been for myself if I could turn back time.
Yeah.
You can keep your strips really tidy if you do this.
Welcome to Quilled and Sculpted Cards. I'm Cecilia Louie. In this class, I'm going to teach you unique dimensional paper techniques to enhance and sculpt die cuts. You'll also learn my signature airy style of quilling, including how to form and glue quilling shapes to your cards. I'll teach you how to combine shapes to create more complex quilled creations. By the end of this class, you'll be able to manipulate paper to become extraordinary gifts for your family and friends.
Can you sort of explain your style? Or how would you explain what your style is?
Sure. I would call it more graphic, more open, more airy. So traditional coils tend to be fuller, denser, and that's lovely as well. I think at the time I didn't have as many stores or opportunities to buy things online as I do now. So I was actually just trying to be frugal with my supplies. I didn't have a die cutter at the time, so I was like, well, guess what? If I just do the outside ring of my flower, then I would save so much more paper. So, and then I kind of liked how simple it looked. It looked more iconic, more, I guess, I was borrowing from the graphic design side of me. And so it looked actually calmer, cleaner, less busy. And so I could focus on the shape itself. Although it made it also a little weaker. I mean, quillers call that technique now, they call it on edge quilling. The first pattern I sold was for quilled flowers, and that was like back in 2014, I think. I would call it more open.
And so you've mentioned the die cutting machine a couple of times, and there's this fantastic quote on your blog that I like. What intrigues you most is when quilling and die cutting collide.
Yes.
So can you explain firstly what a die cutting machine is and how these worlds collide for you?
Sure. Do you know what a inkjet plotter is?
No.
No. Okay. It comes from the drafting world. So basically, if you have a machine that it has a pen or a knife, and I've drawn my shape on my computer, I can tell it exactly where to cut. So that's what electric cutting machines like a Cricut or Silhouette can do. And so whatever I draw, it can cut in that amount of space. In the quilling world, I remember falling in love with French flowers. I remember looking at an image online for I don't know how many times over and over again, wishing for one day I would buy a die cutter. And for quillers, we are limited to 90-degree French cuts, or at most 45, 30-degree cuts, just to make it a bit more starburst kind of shape when you French out your petals. Of course, for me, I wanted to draw every one of those petals with, a softer kind of petal look. So to me, doing Frenched flowers it's kind of like a marrying of those two, because I can do the sculpted kind of petals along with the quilling technique. So I love it when I can put the two together. And then, so also you can do different kind of layering and stuff. Even the follow your curiosity, if you look on the blog, you can actually ask the machine to give like there's a scoring tool. So you can ask it to score onto your work surface every one of these letters. So there's some close-up shots I took on my blog where you can see I basically indented this paper. So I didn't have to trace any of these letters out by hand.
Wow.
And I just had to trace it with paper, that's all. That's what I love most, is when you can use the best of both worlds and put them together like that.
That is so cool. So that follow your curiosity piece was the collision of quilling and your die cut machine.
Yes, absolutely. That was when I was also first experimenting cutting my own paper out of the Canson Miton paper. Canson Miton tends to be a lot thicker than conventional quilling paper. Conventional quilling paper in North America, we call that text weight, around 105 GSM, around there. And so it's very malleable. You can do very fine kind of coils, tight coils. And with Canson Miton, it's not cardstock. It's not like the kind of stuff that you would use for a business card. It's kind of like Goldilocks, not too soft, not too hard, it's somewhere in the middle. And so it's still quite malleable. Not like if you were to compare, like I wouldn't achieve as tight a coil. But that's okay, because this is the kind of size of work that I'm going for, so I don't mind that the coils are not as tight. It's more suitable for the larger kind of projects like the quilt letters. They tend to be a little bit larger display piece on a wall versus, say, a little greeting card kind of style of work. So to me, Canson Miton, being thicker, it suited larger pieces. It suited being on edge. It suited the letters, because the open shapes. When you have open shapes like that, it's easier when they're standing on edge. Like how did you feel when you were quilling the letters versus using conventional quilling paper? Did you feel a structural difference?
Yeah, massively. Yeah.
It'll stand up on its edge better, I would say. And there's some straight edges that look straighter because there's more substance to that paper.
Right. Yeah, because that was quite interesting. Like with an I and an L, both lowercase, I was like, you're just putting paper on edge. There's no curl for it to like have some structure to stand up. I was like, you just place it and hope for the best kind of thing. Hope it stays upright.
That's right. And so it really does benefit from that thicker paper. I remember the first time I ever tried to quill the word thanks in italics using conventional quilling paper. I remember looking back at it like, oh, you look scared, because it was so wavery. And it wasn't even a large piece either, but it had the wrong feeling completely. And so I left it alone for years, but I would revisit it like, how can I make you better? And I never thought of trying to use thicker paper. And then I was at the fine arts supply store, and I remember seeing all the papers of all the colors in the Canson range. And I thought, because sometimes I find when I'm trying to look for paper in the typical stationery store, you have light pink and dark pink, and that's it. You don't have the range of colors in between. So when I finally saw that in the fine arts store, I was like, oh, finally, I get some colors. That's what I'm looking for.
Now they say to do something that scares you every single day, and this, being on camera, it scares me. And I think the most rewarding aspect of all this is knowing how it's helped you in your craft room. So thank you to everyone who's told me about their progress and how they're starting or what stage they're at, because it makes me feel like I'm not just me by myself in my craft room.
I think the first book you featured in was in January 2011 in the New Encyclopedia of Origami Paper Craft. Then in 2013, you're in Anne Martin's book, All Things Paper. I'm curious to know, what was your experience contributing to other people's books? How was that?
Oh, it was great, because there was a lot less pressure to have to write a whole book. And so it was a great experience to learn, one project at a time. So the first one, the encyclopedia one, that was where they asked me to show the open flowers as well. And so that was just one simple project. That was easy. It was nice. And then I had to learn photography. And as any quiller will say, it's not as simple as it looks. Like when you look at other, like Yulia Bratskaya's work, when you see the shadows, the way they catch and stuff, it looks so easy and simple. And then when you try to, why doesn't it look like hers? It's actually kind of tricky, right? To get the shadows to fall just right, soft enough that it shows the definition, and yet not so harsh that you wash out the colors. So yeah, lots to learn, even for just one project, right? And so it was very nice to see your name in a book and actually take that out of the library and say, this was me. So yeah, it just kind of carried on from there. But Anne Martin's book was more about all things paper. So that one was the magic box.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. Did you want to see that in how it opens?
Sure, yes.
So if you open from this side, you get the main compartment.
Wow.
And then when you open from this side, you get the opposite compartments.
That is so cool.
And so it works because it's like a Z hinge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely seeing your graphic design skills coming in for that one.
Yeah, I guess so. That everything helps.
So what would you say is your most memorable piece that you've ever made for any reason, whether it's, the proudest or the hardest or got the most recognition? What would you say is most memorable?
The most memorable always is the one I made for my father-in-law's doctor when he was in the ICU at the hospital. Again, it's marrying my graphic design sense. I quilled a stethoscope, and instead of where what the piece that they use to listen, instead of it being just a round circle, I put a heart there instead, because it just showed, to me, it was a graphic image of saying thank you for the care that he gave. And so to me, that's never something I can ever find in the store. And it summed up how I felt about the whole situation, how our family felt about the situation. And so it said so much. And that, yeah, somehow that's always been my happiest piece, because it just communicates so much.
That's lovely. That's really, really nice. Would that, you say that's sort of your proudest piece as well? Like, are they interchangeable or?
To be honest with you, I don't really have one. I get captured by whatever I'm working on at the moment. And then at that point, it's like, oh, I need to take it to my bedside table and and it's like the last thing I look at when I go to sleep, and then the first thing I look at when I wake up.
Yeah.
So it's whatever I'm working on at the moment is my current love, I guess.
Yeah.
So it depends on when you're asking.
Fair enough. Can I ask what you are working on at the moment?
Yeah, I'm actually. Oh yes, this is going to be another tutorial someday. So takeout containers. Now that we're all self-isolating a lot at home, I've been realizing how wonderful they are for keeping everything stacked and without getting crushed. It's fantastic. So inside these trays, I'm kind of working on a new pattern.
Oh, cool.
And then you can combine them.
Wow.
To create a different shape altogether.
That is lovely. Kind of looks like a 4-leaf clover.
Yes, a little bit, or like a poppy.
Yeah.
Because poppies are 4 petals, right?
Yeah.
Pansy, I think, are 5. And this one kind of reminds you of like a hydrangea.
Yeah, that's lovely.
So these are all shapes that I cut with my die cutter, and I'm using it to give me the precision that I always crave. Again, I can't seem to veer off from being precise all the time. I curse myself. Why do you have to think this way? I'm also I'm experimenting with using markers. So can you see how it's like there's 3 colors in there?
So was that white paper, and then once it was made, then you put the color on?
Yes. So so you have 3 colors in one strip. So you are the one determining where those colors fall.
And you can still see the like the minimalist rather than being a really full shape sort of style coming through.
Yes. So it's completely different from everything else I've done. I don't know. Right now it's capturing all my attention. You can make like even the hydrangea looks completely different when you're including 2 different colors.
Yeah. So once it's fully assembled, that's when you're coloring it in?
No. You color it in before it becomes assembled.
That is stunning.
I think this is like a trillium as a flower. There's a flower called a trillium. I've been looking up 3-petal flowers, 4-petal flowers. So working my way through them all and figuring out what to call them.
That's cool. And so what would you say is your favorite technique, your favorite quilling technique?
Yeah, I don't think I have one. I
was thinking maybe the on edge sort of style features strong in your work, or
I guess so. But then again, this isn't the stuff that I'm working on now. That's not with Quilling. I think the on edge stuff I kind of did for quite a few years now, and I guess I'm wanting to branch out into new things yet again. Yeah, the on edge, I mean, I guess more the airier look, but I guess I hadn't thought of that as a technique. I never thought of that as a technique. Like I never thought of it, like I think of Ligia Politis, her vortex coils. I think of that word as technique, I guess. Like it's a technique to make that kind of petal. I guess on edge stuff is what people would consider that to be.
And I liked how you did a tutorial on Leisha's vortex coil, how to achieve it. Cool.
Can I tell you and everyone else a secret? I didn't actually know how to do it until I had to do that tutorial.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah, I actually had to practice. So if you guys can only see how poorly I did them. Like, okay, if you're gonna do a tutorial, you better look like you know what you're doing.
Oh, you look like a master, so well done. And what would you say is your favorite tool?
Oh, definitely the tool that's not a quilling tool. This one's actually called a Kemper lace tool. So it's actually used for clay making.
Okay.
And so there's a needle end on one side, and then I have no idea what they use for this. Probably to scrape the clay, I suspect. And I don't know why. I think I was experimenting with bookbinding at the time, and I remember seeing this at a art supply store, and I thought, oh, cool, that would be a great tool for doing the piercing that you need for the stitching of bookbinding. Did I ever do any bookbinding? No, not really. But it just kind of sat in my drawer for years, and then when I got into quilling, the twirled paper book came with the slotted tool, and I had seen the needle tool being used, so I thought, okay, well, let's see if this works. And then sure enough it did, and I've never used anything since. I sometimes use this side just to scrape off excess glue, so I'm not keeping this side dirty, and so it comes in handy that there's such a fine point right there.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So, and I quite like it. I like the smoothness of the wood versus rubber or plastic, that kind of feel.
Thank you so much for sharing all the work that you do.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's so cool. Like from starting your blog in 2006 and then launching on Etsy in 2009, the various books you've featured in and published yourself, and the ebooks you've published, the free templates that you put up, all the YouTube tutorials on top of your day job. Like, it's so incredible what you've put out into the world. And like, I know, like, I've benefited so much. Like I've done a lot of projects that you've put out there. And when I started my quilling journey, I was looking at a lot of your tutorials, like, you know, how to use the glue properly and how to get things standing upright. So thank you from me, and I'm sure thank you from everybody else. It's been fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, the funniest thing is because I was putting so much out there in the beginning and I had no idea how it was being received, it's because of comments like yours that helps me keep going, even when I feel like, oh, there's no one watching this. What's the point of doing this? You know, and I reread them. So it does help me keep going. So thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this interview with Cecilia Louie, the incredible mind behind Paper Zen. If this interview inspired you, make sure you check out Cecilia's blog, YouTube channel and Etsy store. She shares so many inspiring ideas, free templates and creations. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Take care. Goodbye. Is that the Harry Potter series in the cupboard as well?
Yes, I've read that series over 10 times.
Oh, wow.
I love it.